Linda lived a painfully lonely life, working as a strategy planner at Preston accounting firm. Numbers were her world, and she mastered them effortlessly. She had just completed a critical company report, one she was meant to present herself. But Denova, her co-worker and a close friend of the new CEO, the son of the late CEO, sees her as a threat. The CEO's son had recently taken over after his father's death, and Denova was determined to secure the vice president position. To him, Linda was an obstacle, older, more experienced, and far more productive. After drafting a powerful proposal, Denova asked her to give him the proposal document ahead of a meeting, promising to give her the full credit while presenting it as her name was on the proposal. Linda trusted him and handed it over, believing his promise of making sure she received full credit. But trust became betrayal. She followed him quietly, just to be sure. From a distance, she watched as Denova casually removed her name from the document and tossed it into the trash. Something inside her broke. She returned home that night, crushed and empty, speaking loudly into the silence of her room. Her bird, which she took as her best mate, was the only living thing in the room. The former CEO, before his death, promised her the vice president position, along with a significant salary increase. But that promise now meant nothing. The next morning, everything felt off. As Linda sat eating her toast, Mr. Bradley, the new CEO, walked in. Startled, she rushed to introduce herself, unaware that crumbs clung to her mouth. He noticed. Disgust flickered across his face, though he masked it quickly. She tried to explain her value, her work, her importance. He dismissed her without a second thought. Later, his PA attempted to remind him of Linda's contributions and his father's promise, but Mr. Bradley had already made his decision. Denova would be vice president. When Linda heard the news, anger surged through her. She stormed into the CEO's office, demanding what she had earned. Mr. Bradley didn't deny her brilliance. He acknowledged her intelligence, her hard work, her unmatched productivity. But then came the blow. He told her she lacked presence, her appearance, her dressing, her coordination in public settings. Still, he gave her one last chance, complete one more major assignment, and he would reconsider. That was all she needed. She went home, furious, but determined. The next morning, a flight to California awaited for a crucial presentation. Everyone expected Linda to stay away after what had happened. But she showed up. Uninvited. Unshaken. They boarded the plane. As it soared into the sky, Linda remained focused, buried in her work. Meanwhile, Mr. Bradley and his circle mocked a video she had uploaded, one about wildlife and survival. They laughed at her quietly, amused. Linda noticed. She removed her earpiece, her expression hardening. In that moment, clarity struck. She wasn't respected. She was being used. Without hesitation, she deleted the files. Then everything changed. The plane began to shake violently. Passengers panicked as the flight attendant shouted instructions. Seatbelts were fastened, except Denova and his friend, who ignored the warnings. The aircraft started tearing apart mid-air. Chaos. Denova lunged toward Linda, gripping her tightly as she remained strapped in. His friend clung to his leg, forming a desperate chain of survival. The force was unbearable. In panic, Denova grabbed Linda by the neck, choking her as he tried to hold on. But Linda fought back. With a fork in hand, she stabbed his grip. He screamed and let go instantly. His tie snagged on the wreckage as the plane spiraled down, crashing violently into the sea near an isolated island. Water rushed in. Linda struggled, sinking, fighting against the weight of her seatbelt. With the last of her strength, she freed herself. Morning came with the sound of waves. Linda woke on the shore, weak but alive. Nearby, she spotted Mr. Bradley, injured, barely conscious. Survival instinct took over. She found a rock, smashed it into a sharp edge, and turned it into a crude blade. She gathered materials, built a shelter, and dug a hole lined with coconut shells and leaves to collect water. Rain came soon after, drenching the island, but she was ready. The next morning, Mr. Bradley awoke to the sight of Linda calmly drinking water from a coconut shell. She noticed him and rushed to his side, offering him water. Then she told him the truth. Everyone else was gone. The weight of it crushed him. But Linda kept moving. Using a bamboo stick and a palm tree, she created friction until smoke appeared, then fire. Flames rose, and for the first time, she smiled with genuine excitement. Mr. Bradley watched, stunned. She caught fish, roasted it, and fed him, though he still hesitated, still clinging to comfort in a place where comfort no longer existed. To Linda, this wasn't a nightmare. It felt like freedom. A world stripped of judgment. A life reduced to survival, pure, honest, real. But Mr. Bradley couldn't see it that way. He worried about escape, about rescue, about returning to civilization. He suggested building a signal, SOS or help. Linda dismissed him calmly. "Focus on getting strong first," she said. "You can't leave if you can't stand." They got into an argument as Bradley started bossing her on the island. He then tried getting up but couldn't due to pain. Linda came over to help him, but he resisted her and told her not to touch him. Linda had a crush on him and probably thought this was a good opportunity to bond with him. But everything about Linda irritated Bradley. He immediately lashed out at her, warning her not to speak to him in such a manner anymore. Linda got offended, picked up her stuff, and left him on his own. At the moment, he sounded pleased and happy with her leaving. Seconds turned into minutes, and minutes went into hours, and he started feeling lonely, weary, and thirsty. Still not strong enough to stand up, night came with heavy winds, blowing away his shed. It was a really long night for him. Day broke, and Linda came out and saw him lying helpless like a dead corpse. She gave him water in a bamboo log and said politely, "We are not in the office anymore." Linda gathered firewood and went into the forest to hunt. She told Bradley that she saw prints of an animal and felt it was a boar. She sharpened her locally made spear and headed for the hunt. In the bush, she kept following the tracks of the boar as she saw movement in the bushes. Getting closer, she didn't see the animal again. Then from behind, the boar attacked and pounced on her, pushing her to the ground as she screamed on top of her voice. She stood up and ran away. The boar turned, charging and looking for her, but she climbed on top of a tree. From that height, she jumped, pouncing on the animal with the spear in her hand. The wood snapped. The boar charged at her, clearly wanting to devour her. Acting fast, she raised the stick against the boar as it ran straight into it. The boar kept trying to attack her, so she took another wood, stabbing it severely, even in the eyes. So the boar died. That night, they roasted the meat and ate well to their fill, enjoying every bite. In the morning, Linda went scavenging and saw a waterfall, a source of clean natural water. She was excited and was playing in the lake. She looked out and saw a boat approaching the shore. She raised her hand and shouted for help, just before she paused. She didn't want to leave the island yet. She was having the moment of her life with the man she had a crush on. She came back, gave Bradley some water, and told him about the new water source but didn't tell him about the boat, pretending as if nothing happened. Bradley was already exhausted of the island. It had been 2 weeks, and he didn't know why rescue wasn't coming. Bradley suggested they build a raft and sail off. Maybe they could get somewhere and be rescued. Linda dismissed the idea and told him that should be their last resort. She was very happy on the island and believed they were living their best lives, but that was the last place Bradley ever wanted to be. They both got into an argument. Bradley started being bossy again, so he picked up a stick and limped off to go build his own shed, staying away from Linda. He struggled to build while Linda was busy making a jungle hat. It wasn't long before it started raining. He spent all that time achieving nothing. Linda was under her shed while he was under the rain, scrambling for how to get fresh water. In the morning, Linda caught some fish, walked past him, and greeted him. He was still lying down, hungry. It had already been days, and he was very hungry. He saw an insect, rushed, grabbed it, and stuffed it into his mouth without thinking twice. He was disgusted but had to feed. Frustrated and hungry, he had to go back to Linda. He apologized and begged her for food. She had a lot of food but asked him to apologize about the incident at the office. Bradley had no choice, so he apologized. Linda then served him something to eat. Few days later, they went for a walk around the island since Bradley's leg was already getting better. Linda showed him a section of the island where she had seen the boat but lied to him that the area was filled with toxic plants, dangerous snakes, and bees that could take someone's life in a blink, warning him to avoid the area entirely. She also showed him some toxic plants. They both headed back, and on their way back, Linda slipped, almost falling off a cliff. She grabbed a tree root, holding firm, before Bradley stretched out his hand and helped her up. At that moment, Linda felt maybe he was not totally useless. Back at their camp, they ate in the night and drank, and Linda told Bradley the story of her life, how she was married to a bad and wicked husband who later died in a car accident after an argument at night. Linda woke up in the morning and found Bradley naked, taking his bath at the seaside. She immediately turned her eyes away and walked off. Not long after, it started raining heavily with a mighty wind. A huge tree fell down, almost taking the life of Bradley, but Linda dived and pushed him away. They ran out of the camp, seeking refuge in a small cave nearby. Their clothes were soaked from the rain, so they pulled off. Bradley suggested they warm each other with body heat. They held each other tightly, shivering but slowly regaining warmth. The next morning, Linda woke and stepped outside to find their shelter destroyed by the storm. Bradley reassured her, "We'll build another one," and she couldn't help but marvel at how mature and capable he had become. Together, they constructed a new shelter. The following day, Bradley offered to cook a meal for Linda. Excited, she took her first bite, but soon, dizziness, blurry vision, and excruciating stomach pains overwhelmed her. Bradley had poisoned her with the same poisonous fruit she had shown him during their hike. Laughing, he dragged his handmade raft into the sea, shouting insults at her. But the sea had other plans. The waves destroyed his raft, and Bradley began to sink. Just as he was about to go under, he saw a familiar face, Linda. She dove in and dragged him from the water, performing CPR despite vomiting over him. When he finally opened his eyes, he realized it was Linda who had saved him. The next morning, Bradley apologized profusely, insisting he hadn't meant to harm her. Linda brushed it off and told him he understood he was desperate. She also told him the poison was not enough to kill someone. So she served him a poisonous sea crab. He chewed it. And the bite brought instant paralysis. His body wouldn't move, nor feel pain. Linda calmly revealed her knife, removed his clothes, and sliced a rat, scaring him as if she was cutting his penis and also warning him, next time, it wouldn't be a rat. Days passed. Bradley focused on building a shed, avoiding Linda after their violent encounter. Linda ventured into the bush for fruit. Then she heard voices from the sea. Ziri, Bradley's fiancée, and a boatman approached. Linda waved, though deep inside, she felt nothing. She wasn't ready to leave the island yet. She was leading them to Bradley, but at the mountain's edge, she feigned tying her shoelace. Ziri walked past her innocently and slipped, and despite the boatman rushing to help, calling Linda for help, Linda dropped a massive stone on him, sending both tumbling to their deaths. Returning to camp, Linda appeared devastated. Bradley couldn't comprehend her silence. One night, she dreamt of Ziri rising from the sea, calling her a murderer. In a panic, Linda struck Ziri with a stick on fire. She woke up. Bradley went out hunting after days of inactivity from Linda. He spotted a boar, but the noise from his footsteps scared it away. Investigating, he discovered the boar was trying to eat his dead fiancée buried in a shallow grave. Heartbroken, he ran back to Linda. Bradley confronted her, showing her the engagement ring. "Did you kill her?" he demanded. Linda lied, claiming it was an accident. Bradley didn't believe her. She reached for her knife, but it wasn't there. Bradley had it. Panicked, Linda ran into the bush. Bradley ran after her. Linda clutched on his neck, attempting to strangle him with a rope. Bradley grabbed her hair, tearing at her skin, but she retaliated, throwing him to the ground. She bit his shoulder, tearing his flesh out. Bradley held her to the ground, his finger on her face, then she bit his finger where he wore his fiancée's ring. In agony, he withdrew his hand and crushed her eyes, trying to blind her, but she grabbed a nearby rock and struck him on the head, forcing him to release her. Furious, Linda spat out the ring, showing him, and then swallowed it. Bradley lunged again, holding her head against the ground, but she scrambled and got the knife from the ground and stabbed him. Bradley took off and ran for his life. He ran toward the direction Linda had once warned him was filled with poisonous gas and deadly animals. There, he saw the house, what Linda had been hiding from him all this time. He rushed inside, seeking help. He managed to open the glass door, entered, grabbed a cloth, and pressed it to his wound to reduce the bleeding. Linda spoke to him from the CCTV control room inside the house. She had gone ahead of him. He opened a drawer, looking for a knife, but couldn't find any. Linda revealed that she had taken every weapon in the house. That was when he realized that Linda had broken into the house long ago. In fact, that was where she had brought the knife from to the camp. She also confessed to killing Ziri, his fiancée. Bradley was shocked and pained at her confessions. He grabbed a horn from the table and hid it behind his back. Linda came out, pointing a gun at him. She demanded that he confess he loved her under gunpoint. He did everything she asked. That was when Bradley realized she might actually be mentally unstable. He apologized for everything, even what had happened in the office, acting pitiful to make Linda lower her guard. When she did, he struck her with the animal horn, pushing her against the wall. She brought out a golf stick, but by then Bradley was already holding the gun. Bradley fired, but the gun was empty. Linda counterattacked, knocked the gun from his hand, struck him to the floor, and finished him with the golf stick. A year later, Linda was among civilization, granting interviews and fabricating stories about how everyone had died in the plane crash, except her, the lone survivor who had spent months on the island.